Yesterday, Portugal had its general election, and the Portuguese people decided who was going to be government in the next 4 years. And surprise, surprise, the Socialist Party won. That's right, the most corrupt party in Portugal won again. Despite the fact that it caused our last bankruptcy in 2011, despite the fact that it was also responsible directly for our second bankruptcy back in the 1980s, despite the fact that it's responsible for most of the policies that have destroyed this country completely and that keep it as one of the most poor and miserable countries in Europe, the Portuguese people thought that the socialists deserved to win. And not just win, because they were very, very close to getting an absolute majority in parliament, which is something that many polls predicted, that they were going to get an absolute majority in parliament, but that didn't really happen. They got close, but it didn't really happen. So let's look at the results. The Socialist Party had nearly 37% of the votes, and this means 106 deputies in parliament. In second place, we have the Social Democrats, with nearly 28% of the votes, and this makes up for 77 deputies in parliament. In third place, we have the Left Bloc, with nearly 10% of the votes, and this means 19 deputies in parliament. The Left Bloc, by the way, if you've seen my previous videos, you'll know that it's one of the most radical parties that we have in Portugal. They are the most extreme that you will find in Portugal, yet they are growing, which shows just how crazy the Portuguese people really are. Then we have the Communists, and they had little less than 6.5% of the votes, which means 12 deputies in parliament. In fifth place, we have the Popular Party, the tiny center party that I keep talking about. They had 4.25% of the votes, which means 5 deputies in parliament. Next, we have PAN, who had 3.28% of the votes, which means 4 deputies in parliament. Next, we had a party called Chega, which means enough in English, and it had 1.30%, which means 1 deputy in parliament. Next, Iniciativa Liberal, that had 1.29% and also 1 deputy, and then another party called Livre, who had 1.09%, which also means 1 deputy. There are still 4 deputies that need to be determined, because they are related with the votes from migrants, Portuguese migrants in other countries. But essentially, the Socialist Party won. Nothing is going to change with the remaining 4 deputies that need to be determined. And I'm not baffled by the fact that they won. This was expected. The only thing that remained a mystery was if the Socialist Party was going to get the absolute majority, and they were very, very close. What really surprises me is the fact, and if you saw or heard my previous videos, then you will understand that socialism has been the bane of this country. Socialism is responsible for the fact that we are so miserable and poor. Socialism is the reason why many of the countries that play on our league, our economic league in Europe, are already catching up or going beyond what Portugal can do. And this is not good. I don't care about the competition with other countries, because that's meaningless. What I want is to have good life conditions, good services, hopefully low taxes, but if we have to have higher taxes, then that must mean that the services that are provided with the money that I pay and other people pay in taxes is used to make the best services ever. But that's not what happens under socialism. The past 4 years were horrible, absolutely horrible. The corruption cases increased, and of course the socialists are the responsible for the vast majority of corruption cases. The amount of money that is misused, the public money that is misused when the socialists are in power, is astronomical. The cases of lots of problems that the socialists themselves caused, but they never get any sort of responsibility or consequence for that fact. The fact that they violate all sorts of laws in the country, and they even laugh about it in public, and nothing happens to them, is also another thing that was quite prevalent in the past 4 years. So how can this be the force, the party that gets more votes? Only in a country where the majority of the population is very ignorant and stupid. I'm sorry, but there's no other way to say it. That's the exact wording that needs to be used when talking about the Portuguese people, because how can this be the thing, the party, that is most voted? And by a large amount. I mean, the Social Democrats have a very weak leader right now. That's of course one of the reasons. But still, they are the second most voted, and the difference to the Socialists is nearly 10%. That's quite a big gap. How can the Socialists have this advantage? The public services are in shambles. Every single day in the public transportation is a nightmare. Every single day that you need to go to a hospital, it's a nightmare. And the taxes, they just go up. The wages, they just go down. But of course, the Socialists have the New York Times and also the Financial Times to tell all sorts of lies to everyone that is dumb enough not to check for themselves what is being written in those articles. The Financial Times, for example, wrote, I think, 2 more articles praising Portugal, that it was an example to follow. All lies, of course, very easily proven by actual numbers of our economy, but that's propaganda. That's what we have to deal with every single day. And of course the Socialists won, and they are already gloating, because that's what Socialists do. When they lost in 2015, they had no reason to gloat, and that's why they did what they did to reach power. By other means, they won no election in 2015, yet they were in government, because we had a very weak president. Now we have an even weaker president that does absolutely nothing. And so they had complete power. And now that they have a very strong position in parliament, I'm pretty sure it's going to be much, much worse. And the Portuguese people, of course, will pay, as they always do, 3 bankruptcies and counting. The 3rd largest debt in Europe and counting. But the Portuguese people seem to like it. And the socialist nightmare is going to continue. Anyway, I hope you like this, and I'll see you next time.